All right, great. So we're recording. This is Managing the Risks of Summer for Cornell Cooperative Extension. This is Kim Fleming, Professional Development Specialist with Extension Administration. And we're here with Jamie Ferris, who is President of P.W. Wood & Son Incorporated, otherwise known as the is our CCE Association Risk Management and Insurance Officer. And Jamie's here to share some of those special risks that come up in the summer. So welcome, Jamie.
Good morning, Kim. Good morning, everybody. Glad to be here. So hopefully there's this presentation has updates in it. So if you sat through it before last summer, you'll see some updates in here, some refresher for current policies. We're happy to take questions as we go, and we'll try to respond to them. If you could put them up in the chat box as we go. If for some reason we don't get an answer to something you had or you have a question later, please feel free to email me directly. My information is on there. Hopefully you have it, and we can go from there. So just moving through managing the risks of summer. And I believe it's actually going to happen. It feels like we're getting summer now. Apparently we're up here, at least in Ithaca. We're supposed to hit 87 on Friday. So hopefully this will not be all of our summer, but who knows with the way the weather has been going. So just a quick disclaimer, we are just insurance and risk management. We're not attorneys. We do know about the law, though, because of the preface of what we do, but just to keep that in mind as we move through. So what we're trying to do today, just quickly, we're covering some information, current recommendations to reduce your risk. So we're reminding some issues with youth safety and adult safety, which of course is key. And also for the animals of summer, various areas, petting zoos, fairs and exhibits, pony rides. We're also going to talk about state fair a little bit. We're also going to deal with other animal policies as we move through. And make sure that everybody has a good, safe, fun, educational, and productive summer with 4-H and cooperative extension. Oops, click there. So the primary purpose of this policy purpose is to help staff and volunteers and program participants plan ahead, and like I said, keep people and animals healthy and safe, and hopefully prevent worst case scenarios, and then if something does happen, we can mitigate their impacts because we've planned ahead, prepared ahead. So just some quick tips on youth safety to make sure we're in that area, not necessarily. So we want to always make sure we're following the VIP process, and we're screening and enrolling adults volunteering for more than any one day for CCE based on volunteer category, so casual or enrolled, especially and yet not with youth. And actually, it shouldn't just be youth. We mention youth because it's summer, but it's any at-risk population. So if you have programs that are dealing with disabled citizens or adult citizens, those are also considered at risk. May be considered at-risk populations, so we're making sure we're dealing with them appropriately. We always want to make sure we have proper supervision, and it's the required number of chaperones are involved. And also looking forward to State Fair. It's not mentioned here on the chaperoning, but I think you want to be looking for the updates from Andy Turner regarding the chaperoning at State Fair and guidelines as that applies. So there's been some significant updates and changes there, so I want to make sure you guys do look for that going forward. Always have the correct acknowledgement of risk form on file, and Form Code 1501 has that. And if you have any questions as it relates to that, please send them into my office. And if you want us to double check what you have, you can always just send it in. It really isn't a problem for us to do a quick review and take a look at it. Just give us some time to look at it. And obviously, it kind of goes into the queue of everything that comes into our office, so we don't want to miss it. Pay attention. Key things also. Footwear, clothing, eye protection, gloves, etc. So not a big fan. My children, my daughters wear them all the time, but flip-flops are not a great summer footwear for activities involving 4-H typically, other than maybe camp, or when you're going to the shower or down to the swimming area. But making sure they have proper eye protection and gloves where needed. Use common sense. We want to make sure we're making sure kids they can continue the activity. It's amazing the difference between a proper shoe and a flip-flop can end a day for somebody pretty quickly with a smashed toenail. That didn't have to happen. So plan for appropriate breaks as well. As I mentioned, this Friday, my kids are doing a youth activity. They're going to be hiking this Friday, with a day off on one of their youth groups at church. So they're going to have to be making sure they have water with them and taking proper breaks and fluid and being hydrated. That's a key one. That's also for adults as well. Let's not underestimate that ability. or adults to ignore their own hydration while they're paying attention to kids staying hydrated. And as we get to that, adult safety, participating in CCE events and activities should have been properly trained and oriented and supervised. And orientation should also involve to the event and the facility. Where is the first aid kit? How do we deal with emergencies? What's our contacts? How do we get to where we need to be? How do we get help in if we need to get help in? Hopefully, maybe if you participated in Sarah Dayton and my SHINE presentation, which is a program we're promoting now to help make sure you're ready and aware of situations and how to deal with them. So know how to prevent and respond to emergencies. Make sure the adults have signed the acknowledgement of risk form. Same thing, proper footwear, gloves, sunscreen. That's another one I didn't mention back on kids. You want to make sure they're wearing sunscreen and have more to put on. You know, you have to remind them, well, I put it on this morning, you know, and that was 4 hours ago, and they've been running and sweating and swimming, and, you know, the sunscreen is long gone. And also for the adults, as I mentioned, appropriate breaks and fluids to keep hydrated. So some of this is, you know, obviously common sense, but it always is good to talk about it. Animal program safety considerations. So what is the context and the purpose of this event? What are we doing? What animals are we dealing with? What is the project settings? Are we doing what's appropriate for the situation we're in with these animals? Is the public involved? So are we aware of the public settings, and are we following guidelines where the public is going to be involved with our animals? What's the educator's role in this? Making sure it's clear and defined. Make sure the animals have been properly selected. They're in good health. We have all the certificates we need for them to be there and participating. They're being handled properly. They're well-handled animals, and they're good in those situations. And making sure the facilities and the exhibits meet up to standards that we have set for that. And we do have some changes there as it relates to specific breeds, and we will get to that later on in the presentation. Let's see. So the educator role. I call the educator the field risk manager. I like to use this phrase. I started using this a couple of years ago when I started to get more involved in the program. So you're the boots on the ground, the educator of the situation, making sure what's going on. So following, you know, you're guiding the program and the risk management. You're the lead on that. Who's in charge? Select and guide the volunteers. Make sure you're following policy. You're orienting them. You're supervising them. You're offering feedback to them. You're accepting feedback from them on the program. That's another one we should have in there. So, and it's got to be in a positive and growing environment. We want to make sure it's always geared positively. Making sure with data management too, with camps and clubs and organizations and summer programs that we're collecting a lot of records. Who has access to the information? We're collecting it. Who has, you know, we're limiting that to who needs to know, and also we're retaining it at a proper level of security. Public education, making sure you have general education about the program. We do have to have higher public safety protocols based on the program. So you want to make sure what type, again, what programming are we doing? What are the safety concerns? Are we following those? Are we doing them as best as we should be? And again, if you have questions or it comes up, you know, you can always come back to our office for consideration or review of what you've got planned and how you want to approach it. Okay. Animal selection. So keys with the animal, we want to make sure it's calm. The animal is a calm animal when approached by strangers, able to be touched without showing aggression. They're well groomed, so well cared for. They were receiving their annual care, and we have demonstrated that through the necessary documentation. They're free of disease and parasites, you know, because we don't want to, one, expose the public to anything they don't need to, or expose other animals that are participating in the event. They're easily handled without force. They're very calm in public places and around new experiences. They always respond well to their handlers. They don't exhibit fear toward other animals, and they can be handled by more than one person, meaning if not their owner, somebody else can handle them, and they're good in that situation. That's the key to what we're trying to make sure we have. So one area in that, here's one of the updates I want to notice just got updated for goat exhibition, is that they can be shown by 4-H members at 4-H goat shows, even at fairs, and new in 16 goats representing 4-H in a public setting. They have to be at least 4 months of age and are required to have they can have the off-label rabies vaccine administered by a licensed veterinarian. So we are accepting that now, and we must have proof of that immunization, and the certificate must be required. Vaccinated goats are now allowed to be part of petting zoos and hands-on public education programs. Barrier fencing will still be required to restrict public access to unvaccinated goats. For example, they're too young for the vaccine. And you can contact the Department of Animal Science to offer guidance on reasonable barrier fencing. We do have some examples set in there. It's the double barrier. Kids born to rabies-vaccinated mothers and housed to avoid rabies exposure do not need barrier fencing unless specified by the county health department. CCE association staff are required to provide posters about risks involved in the animal exhibits and importance of handling, hand washing, links to posters provided. Hand washing stations should be available with the, I'm losing my mind here, the cream, the
sanitizer.
The sanitizer, there we go, thanks Kim. 2 in the morning, I gotta have another cup of coffee. Follows New York State Health Department guidelines to report any animal exposure incidents, and this policy protects the public and guides steps to prevent the general public from coming in contact with potential exposure. So there is an update for the goat users. I think they'll be happy about that. We've come a long way, I think, on that, so hopefully this allows for a little more flexibility in the programming, and is good news to a lot of the people out there.
And Jamie, this might be a good time to acknowledge that Dana Palmer, our 4-H animal science specialist, is on the line, and Tatiana Stanton is also on the line, who works with goats at Cornell. Has worked with the 4-H goat program for many years and has provided input to this.
Yes, they did. They were did excellent, advocated very strongly on behalf of this policy change, and they did a great job, and I appreciate their help and assistance for this. Thank you very much, both of you. And okay, so we're going to move on. So you can also touch base with Dana if you have questions about this policy, or Tatiana. They can definitely help you with that. Just so to cover the issue of liability with the animals specifically, so the association's liability insurance does not cover the liability of any individual owner of an animal used, including the 4-H leader if it's their animal. The owner of the animal is also at risk of liability. They should be aware of that and be clear, and that should be clearly understood. They're responsible for the actions of their animal. So it's important that we protect the public from potential exposure to rabies through clear communication and strict adherence to the exhibition guidelines. We want to make sure that that's our biggest concern at this point. So with regard to regulations, we follow New York State Fair and Ag and Markets guidelines. State animal alerts come out from, I just think this one, right. Thank you, Tatiana. That's a good note. If you could look at that from Tatiana. The state animal health alerts come from Dr. David Smith, New York State veterinarian. The species guidance from Ag and Markets is at this website, so that's a good link for you to follow. Again, coming to us for additional clarification if you need it. Rabies in New York check batch. This is just clear. It's still a problem in New York State. It is present in all counties from bats. We also have it in a lot of counties except right now Nassau, Suffolk, and Franklin. Although the incidence of wild life and domestic animals in New York State is less than 50% of what it was during its peak, New York still is one of the leading states. We still are with rabies. So you can follow that as far as Wadsworth to check that information with regard to rabies. And symptoms related to rabies, all animals are subject to it, warm-blooded. Rabid animals, wild and domestic, often undergo changes in their behavior and vocalization sounds. Depending on where in the body the virus is replicated at any time, the animal may show furious forms of rabies, excitable aggression in the dumb form, depression passive. Ruminant animals, cats, sheep, and goats may exhibit muzzle tremors, have difficulty swallowing, appear to be choking. So these are just good guidelines. Always wear gloves when examining the mouth of an animal with any sort of choking or neurological symptom. And wild animals may lose fear of humans, so they come in, and we've seen that. We just had a rabid, I think it was a skunk, I'm sorry, in our own neighborhood just last fall that came in, so we had to have that taken care of, so it's still happening. So animal safety tips, just when around animals, you want to make sure closed-toed shoes again. Most animals like the routine. I think most people like routine too. But most animals avoid quick movements and noises, speak softly, sensitive hearing and can detect sound you cannot hear. Many animals have wide angle of vision, so movement to them is perceived differently. You want to be making sure they're not being spooked. Be patient. Animals learn to trust when people are gentle and consistent. Leave animals alone when they are hungry, eating, or nursing. Stay away from sick animals or those not feeling well. Be careful around animals you do not know. Be aware of teeth and feet position. Animals can be playful, but don't let them butt you. Don't let them get too aggressive. You don't like a situation to get out of hand. And how you treat them is how they will treat you. Very good words there. And I think, a little bit, I understand with this group where this is probably very knowledgeable to all of you, and just making sure you're keeping it in the back of your mind and making sure you're communicating it. So with facilities, we want to make sure the facilities are in good shape. Pens, gates, chutes, and fences are well maintained. There's easy escape exits for people. Again, you want to have a working knowledge of the facility you're in. Pens and work areas are secured from the public. We absolutely don't want the public in areas they shouldn't be. We want to make sure there's barriers to preventing them from getting in where they shouldn't be. Walking surfaces are clean and not slippery. Obviously, wash areas or areas where we're taking care of animals or water, we want to make sure we're keeping that cleaned up on a regular basis. Manure and waste storage handling areas are separate and maintain, not just overflowing or overspilling. We want to make sure they're properly maintained and cleared out on a regular basis. Animals are restrained with adult supervision. There's not electrical hazards. Public education about maintaining safe distance. We want to make sure they're aware. We have the warning signs we talk about. And there's clean, potable water for the animals. That's obviously very critical. We want to make sure the water source has been certified, where the water is coming from, and it's okay to use. So the New York State Health Assurance Program is another website you can reach out to for guidance in this area, in these areas. 18. Also, we want to make sure, again, signs to warn the public not to feed, and to wash their hands with soap and running water after leaving the animal area. More info later. We're going to talk about that at these stations that we have. Follow proper biosecurity and health practices for all animals. Again, keep sick animals home. Swine, llamas, and other animals with no approved rabies vaccine should be inaccessible to the public, although we strongly recommend pens and stalls have the second barrier fence so the public can't reach to them. We want to have more info on that later. Poultry, rabbits can peck, bite, and scratch. Horses, ponies can kick and bite. So we're just making aware that each animal has its own unique exposures, and we're always aware of them, and making the public aware of those exposures. So here's the barrier, some examples of the barrier fencing, just so you have that. There's sign samples, and of course you can get these also. I'm sorry, we have that downloaded somewhere. I think that's it.
Yep, there's a link right on
the side. More samples of the signs, and you can't have too many signs. Always good to have a lot. And I'm sorry, there was the link at that last one. So down here at the bottom is the link for the signage that you can look to. And more signs. Big print too, large print, highly visible, very conspicuous. Always good to have. Guidelines with regards to petting zoos. Once we have that, animals of good disposition. I mean, going back to the prior slide, we want to make sure the same pulls through. There's proper signage. There's always adults present. We want to make sure that happens. One of the accidents we had with a petting zoo, it was with a pony ride, and we had animals that walked up, and we're going to get to that. We had an adult leader walk away and leave the ponies unattended. So somebody got on and fell off, saddles were cinched up. So we always want to have somebody present to make sure they're being washed. And there's hand washing with soap and running water sanitizer. The health department requires soap and water, 2-gallon jug with spigot at a minimum, be provided at animal displays at level accessible to children and adults. And again, no, these red, no donkey, geese, llamas, oxen, or swine. Find the safety animal exhibit poster and hand washing poster again at the website here.
Jamie, can you talk more about the donkeys, geese, llamas? That's
It's due to the
attitude of
the attitude of the animal, we'll say that, and the unexpected behavior of those animals, unanticipated. That's why we don't have them in there. If you don't know anything about geese, all you got to do is get on a golf course with the Canadian geese. You have to be really careful about that. So, man's best friend, the dog. We're going to move on to this. So obviously, lots of dog functions in 4-H. Obviously, 4-H members have 4-H project dogs. Dogs are carefully selected for project and healthy with proof of vaccinations. Non-4-H members may join the dog obedience classes as special interest projects. Dogs carefully selected for project and healthy with proof of vaccination, same standards. We do have an update for the prohibited dog list. Right now, this is how it stands. This will be in the next update of the Form Code 1501. And the dog content question, can 4-H project dogs and obedience dogs come in contact with the public? Yes, if it's in control of the 4-H'er who owns the dog. Can 4-H project dogs and obedience dogs and petting zoos? Yes. Again, if the 4-H'er who owns the dog is there and in control of the dog. So if they have to take a break and move away, the dog needs to come out of the petting zoo and not be in there. And obviously, we have to allow seeing eye dogs, and we want to make sure the 4-H handler is there, that the dog owner is there. So. Pony rides, I did touch on this really quickly, just briefly. Pony rides are roped off or fenced off and not on a paved surface. Really not. It says preferably, but I just want to stress the not. This really needs to be over a grass or soft ground surface. At the area where that happened, the club leader walked up and the pony ride happened to be on a parking lot. So it was like it was a catastrophic failure in all different directions on there. So somebody, when they did fall, fell on the sidewalk, or excuse me, on the driveway. So ponies are always under control. Children under 5, the parent or guardian must walk alongside. The club leader and all other enrolled adult volunteers must be present at all time, and they must have helmets. If on horseback, we do allow parades, so there are parade guidelines. So if on horseback, an adult leader must be riding along with the youth. And with floats or hay wagons, etc., the leader or enrolled volunteer must be on the float or wagon. All must remain seated while in motion and during the parade. The vehicle towing the float wagon must be driven by 21 or over and must have had their MVR checked and be approved by our office. And only the 4-H youth on the float or the wagon. If non-enrolled siblings of the 4-H member or parent must be on the float or the wagon as well, so if they want to be on there. So there's an answer to parades. We do actually get a lot of that question.
Especially this time of year.
Yeah, especially this time of year. This is a new slide for this year, 5K run and walks. We're starting to see a lot more of these pick up. We have established some pretty strong guidelines on these. We do allow them, but I'm sure that you follow them. They'll be so. First of all, you must let us know about it prior, and you have to give us time to evaluate the 5K and respond to all issues on it. So don't call us about a 5K or talk to us about a 5K that you want to do next week. This is hopefully you're a couple months ahead, assuming you would be anyway, because you want to promote and get people in it. Usually it's a fundraiser of some type. So we really want to know the format of the 5K, so fully describe what your intent is. If it's just stand-up 5K, walk, run. And if you have a theme, themes are okay. We just want to know about it, and we're going to discuss it and talk about it. So we do not want to have any physical contact. No themes with volunteers, i.e. zombie or haunted, will be permitted. There should be never any contact on that basis. Physical contact. Themes include interactive components. We have splash ones out there, or maybe there's some obstacles in there that they may want to get around, very small, low-key obstacles or whatever. That's fine. But any participant, there must be an ability to avoid the obstacle or the color splash situation. So if the runner or the person participating doesn't want to get involved in that, you have to have a clear lane delineated. And the volunteers must be clearly instructed. If they go in that area, they're not to be engaged with in any way. So we understand that that's taken care of. And then you can provide the estimated number of participants. This is really also very important because there could be additional insurance costs depending on the number. We have a capped limit for events. on the number of people that's automatically included in our insurance program. So if it goes over that, we do have to have an additional charge on that. And you want to be aware of that. If it's a fundraising, that's going to be an expense like the timing or whatever else that you want to deal with. And you want to know that ahead of time. Also with 5Ks. So we've been fortunate. I've actually spoken to the executive director at the Roadrunners Club of America. They have terrific guidelines for this. It can be found at this website address here. And these are the guidelines we want you to follow. And if they update it from the 2010, it may be, I don't think they've updated it since, but we want you to use their latest version. It says 2010 there, but obviously if they update it, it's okay to use the updated one. You can also contact them directly. They said they would talk and respond, and they're happy. This is what they're there for. You must use the 5K waiver in adult for youth. This is a specific 5K. Is important because it has some additional language in there specific to 5Ks about, they understand they can be dismissed from the race if they don't follow protocol. They understand they're not supposed to be wearing headphones. They have to be able to hear, the runners around her, hear instructions, other issues about that. Same for volunteers. We still have to follow the VIP guidelines. So casual volunteer, enrolled volunteer, 1 day, making sure we're following those as far as technical. This is what will allow for youth participation. They can be in there, but the minimum age is 8. And youth under 14 must be accompanied by a supervising adult at all times. Moving on. Okay, so that was it on 5K. So if you have any questions on that, you can always get a hold of me and write in on this. This is relatively new guidance for the system as far as this goes. But we want them to have safe, good events. I've got probably a dozen of these going on, I think, throughout the system. So they're very popular. I get it. I think we have about 40 of them that go on here in Tompkins County, so I don't know. They seem to get good turnout for them all the time. So. Events organized by other organizations. So youth enrolled in 4-H may choose to participate in events run by other organizations, pony clubs, ag society events, roundups. Organized by other organizations are not considered sanctioned CCE or 4-H events. It's just a decision by the club, hey, we're going to do this. That's great. Participants of outside events who are 4-H members or volunteers. They are not covered by the liability or the 4-H accident insurance. 4-H members who participate may not represent themselves as 4-H members or use 4-H insignia, logos, clothing, etc., even if they are 4-H members. That's guidance from CCE admin and from our office. And make sure you're using reasonable judgment about the events. Prepare for State Fair. So we'll move on to that's a big one. State Fair rules change each year, so take time to be familiar with new guidelines, and there are several of those that have come through and coming out of Andy Turner's office, especially with regards to the dorms and overnights and chaperoning. I want to make sure you're paying attention to those. Youth selected must meet the behavior expectations. They must be oriented and well follow the dormitory guidelines. Again, I'm going to attract attention. Please look for those. Contact Andy's office if you need those. Select chaperones for the youth. They must be recruited, interviewed, and selected. They must be oriented chaperones and ensure they are fully understand commitment to the responsibility, and they've been fully processed as per the VIP guidelines. So here's part of the guidelines that we're talking about for the dormitory, just so you're aware of it, specifically with the sleeping arrangements and updated policy. So just to be clear, all 4-H youth department overnight participants must sleep in youth building dorms. The dairy cattle exhibitors have the option of staying overnight in the dairy cattle building, and we have set up now, there's new specific guidelines for the way that building is going to be maintained and operated. The State Fair has we've worked with them on that, and they were very good with that. Andy Turner did a fantastic job working with them and getting those protocols in place to make sure that we could agree to allow that to continue to happen. But that is the only building, that overnight addition, outside of the dormitory, that is allowed to happen. 4-H youth and those represented by FFA or breed organizations must complete the overnight registration paperwork for dorm or dairy cattle buildings. So everybody, even if they're not 4-H, if they're not in 4-H, they still have to go through this paperwork process. All youth must have assigned chaperones cleared through the CCE Association, just to cover that and be clear on that. So they've gone through, they've been background checked, and they're there. No other animal exhibit areas are designated for overnight sleeping. Tatiana's having trouble hearing us. Is everybody hearing us okay? Just got a note from somebody, just want to verify. If anybody's having difficulty hearing.
Let me check in the chat box.
We'll check. If anybody's having trouble hearing, just let us know. I'll continue on until we hear something else on that.
Fading in and out.
Okay, maybe that's, I'll move the document. I'm sort of where I am in the table. Could be because of the way I'm turning, so I apologize for that.
He's moving around a lot.
There we go. I'm moving and running around.
Looking at your slides.
It's because Kim throws things at me and I have to duck out of the way. Okay, back on that. So no other animal exhibits are designated for overnight sleeping or 4-H members. And one of the reasons for that is the dairy barn facility has the facilities built into it to allow for this overnight accommodation. And youth may stay with parents or legal guardians in camper or area hotel and must complete the housing exception form. So that is the one other exception on there.
And Adam is mentioning that Debbie Grusmeyer, who's also on the line, I missed her in the list, should be acknowledged also. She did a lot with the youth sleeping in the dairy barn discussion, making that happen along with Andy Turner. So thanks to Debbie. Debbie's also sharing some information, mentioned the NYSCHAP website, which is actually on one of the slides where we talk about hand washing. So appreciate the input from Debbie.
Yeah, Debbie's commenting on the form about that form is coming. Obviously, it'll be out well in time for you to process people for a state fair. So hard to believe that state fair is coming, but it is. You know. Hopefully, we'll have good weather for it. Question was, do the FFA chaperones need to be cleared through CCE association? We're just dealing with the chaperones for 4-H. There will be chaperones in those buildings. The only time they would encounter the other chaperones is maybe in the dairy barn building. Yes, I believe they do, actually. I'm trying to remember the new process, so I apologize if I don't have that clear, but we'll make sure that's clarified. And like I said, you can contact Annie Turner's office, and they can get you guidelines on that as well. Okay. The assigned chaperones, if that applies, it's the CCE chaperones, just to clarify that.
These are the ones that we're selecting.
We're selecting. You have to go through the process, correct. Let's see, what's this? Voice here synonymous with fun. This was just some guidelines on that calendar of events, so you could see that.
That's a clip right from the website.
Yeah, from their website.
And the links are there too in the red boxes.
These are some of the chaperone guidelines, so you understand how they work. This will hopefully answer some of those questions about the chaperoning.
And this is directly from the New York State 4-H website, the staff site there. We also have a Cornell Cooperative Extension staff site, that Extension Administration, and that's on the next slide. But just so you have, there's more specific information here on the State 4-H site.
Right, and you can see the links are on there for you to access. They do a good job of setting that up. So here's the additional staff resources for you to find. So the VIP, obviously, which is key, risk management staff site, 1501, and the 4-H staff site. So lots of links for information here in case you didn't have them, or if you need to update your linking.
If you found us today, you probably know those sites.
Yes. There's some additional educational references for you on this, as far as handling animal information, just all kinds of resources for you depending on the breeds you're working with and working with animals. Other health and safety guidelines, as far as also dealing with animals, just a wealth of information here. Hopefully you should be able to find anything you need to look for or find. You obviously can reach out to various leads on this across the state that have guideline and information that can help you.
And again, thanks to the Department of Animal Science and everybody there who's helped us with these links and sites.
Right.
Appreciate it.
As far as risk management questions, again, this is the contact information for our office. I don't have it on the slide, I usually do, but if you do have a question for our office, always try to include all three, Karen, Lisa, and myself. This helps us make sure we get your question and doesn't get missed, and we can hopefully respond to it. Lisa's really good about cataloging and tracking these and making sure that we're responding to it and staying on top of that. And Sarah Dayton, who was supposed to participate in this presentation, unfortunately has been double booked, obviously is another source that can be in on this. And yes, I'm sorry, that's correct. Thanks, Deb, for clarifying that. It was a new update, so I didn't want to step on anybody's toe there. So the FF advisor would be background checked through the school system. The state fair is approving that like we, the sports teams, and as possible. So we require they follow our guidelines. We don't necessarily have to do the background checking. We just have to know they're following the same guidelines we're following. Okay, so we covered a lot of information there. There's a lot of information on the slides. Went through it pretty quickly, but I think a lot of it was refresher. There was some updates, obviously, with regard to goats and the 5K and some other information. So if anybody has any questions right now on anything we covered here that went through really quickly or something that's come up, or
I have a couple that came into as people are entering, so do feel free to enter those right into the chat box for Jamie. But I have a question about the, is there an approved or prohibited list? So somebody was talking about at camp, the whole dodgeball debate, those sort of things. So this might be a new staff member who's asking, so we may want to talk about the approved activities and the prohibited list.
Right, so in the form code 1501 is the approved and the not approved activities. So there's an approved list and a not approved list of activities. What I always tell people is approved or approved, not approved or definitely not approved, and then if it's not on one of those lists, it doesn't mean it's approved. So please call us or email us. You know, new things come up all the time, and new activities, fun ways for kids to injure themselves. Here, that's me, Mr. Negative. But so just always ask us and say, this is what we're trying to do. Is this okay? Is this approved activity?
And I don't know if dodgeball was in question. I can't remember if that's actually on the prohibited list. So think about camp activities. You know,
I'd have to look at the list again and refresh myself. It probably, I don't remember if it's on there or not.
I can actually show people where to go for that. I think people know where form code is now, and the links are in the presentation. But that is the last couple pages of the 75-page document.
75, which actually is probably going to get longer in the next iteration of it. So,
so we are working on revisions, and there's another question here about form code being updated. So is it updated for next 4-H calendar year, which would start on October 1st, or the next the next 4-H year starting in October 1st, or the next calendar year? I think the way we handle those revisions, Jamie, is where if there's changes that need to happen, we put them in and then share them with the system.
Yeah, but I think we have I believe the big update, we have a lot going and should be happening actually pretty soon. So it'll be definitely before the next 4-H calendar year, which starts in October, but actually I would hope it'd be in the next, of course I don't necessarily control that, so it would hopefully be within the next, before August. I would assume we would have it in there in the update.
So if that doesn't answer your question, let me know that. We can get back to you too. Oh, there's a question from Michelle Ledoux. Oh, sorry.
I don't see it.
Nope, that's not right. Okay, I've got another question that's come in. Can participants stay in a camper with a horse leader instead of a parent or legal guardian during the state fair?
No. It has to be, then they'd have to stay in the dorm because the exception form is only for a legal guardian and a parent.
Thanks for that question. Good to clarify that every year, I believe. So going back to the goat slides, Jamie, there's a question here from Cassie. It says that goats are able to be used in handling.
The goats are okay.
Later,
goats with the off vaccine. I believe the slide was, the later slide did not say goats. It only talked about swine llama. And it says, well, I can go back and check that. Let me look. I'll just look on my paper copy.
So goats that have the off-label vaccine may be used in hands-on activities.
Correct.
But we should clarify that it is an off-label vaccine. goats that have not been vaccinated should not be used in hands-on activities.
Right.
So they would be the ones that would need to have the double barrier fencing. That's kind of confusing.
Right, and we may have missed an update in the slide, but I didn't think it said that. I'm trying to find that. Here we are. That's the hand washing. As long as the goats have the off-label vaccine, we're accepting them as having interactive. So they have to have the vaccine. The other animals mentioned are not allowed.
And Cassie, I'm wondering, you may have the 2015 handout, which was on the staff site. We need to change that with the 2015 slides. That one's there because we still have the 2015 recording. So when I change the recording for today, we'll also put up the current slide. So we have removed goats from that. So swine and llamas do not have, well, actually goats, swine, and llamas do not have federally approved rabies vaccines.
That's still correct. That's actually true. But we are allowing the goats that have that vaccine to participate.
Okay, I want to make sure I've got.
Any other questions?
I think that's what I have. You may have a couple privately to you. Just so you
no, I don't think so.
We caught them all. So if we haven't answered your question, feel free to put that again in the chat box. You can chat to Jamie, you can chat to the host, which is me, Kim, or you can chat to the whole group. But I want to be clear, I want to make sure we're clear on.
Yes, that's correct, Cassie. That just to be clear, folks should not have interaction with llamas or swine. Correct. So if that slide's incorrect, we might have not done that update. So we apologize for that. We'll make sure that what does get uploaded does have that clarified.
And I think that these slides are kind of a summary of the policies that are back behind. So you definitely always want to go back to Form Code 1501 or even the policy that might be a little more in depth than 1501. So this is trying to just give you some highlights of policies that are out there, helping you with risk management. Double checking questions, so we're still taking questions.
I think I missed one. So as Deb noted, I just want to re-mention that they are working on that form, and they hope to have that out soon, and I know they're doing a great job, and I do want to thank them again for all their help. That was I will share that we were pleasantly surprised by the cooperation we got from State Fair with the process there. So we were fully believing we were going to be eliminating any staying in the dairy barn, but they've made some dramatic changes. We've actually complied with a lot of our security requests or recommendations in that barn that made it possible for that to happen. So I want to thank the State Fair for that too, the staff at State Fair.
Great. Any other questions?
Very good.
All right. Thank you so much, Jamie Ferris. I appreciate you being here today and sharing your knowledge.
I'm happy to do it. Again, if you think of something afterwards, please feel free to fire off an email, and we'll try to get a good response to you as quickly as we can. And I hope you guys have a terrific summer. Hope your programs go well. And I don't hear about anything. I don't want to, only good news. Say that tongue in cheek. But hopefully it'll go well. We have a great summer, and kids have a great summer because that's what this is really all about. It's having terrific programming that engages and expands the minds of our kids and our youth. So thank you all for all of your work that you guys do with that. That's terrific. I'm happy to be able to help with it where I can. So, thank you all.
Take care, everyone.